Hi, this is Alex Skouroulis. Today is Thursday, July 18th, 2024, and this is going to be a bit of a teaser because I'm going to go through it really quickly, hopefully less than 10 minutes, but I'm going to talk about a project in which we used AI to help triage and assign incoming customer support tickets to the appropriate support teams within a large healthcare SaaS organization. So in the current environment, or the historic environment, I should say, when a new customer support ticket came into the organization and came into essentially the Azure DevOps ticketing system, they have a human team of experienced, really skilled folks who have been with the company for quite a while, and they must take that ticket and based upon little information, really the title, the description, and some additional auto-generated templated comment information about the user and the organization that they're coming from, they have to then assign that ticket to the appropriate support team endpoint or area path. The challenge, though, is as we looked at the historic 2023 customer support tickets, we found that, in fact, there were over 100 distinct support teams or distinct area paths that the historic help tickets had been correctly assigned to. So, as you can imagine, that's a little bit problematic for a human, let alone an LLM that isn't highly trained or specialized in doing this exact sort of effort. So our first approach and our initial sort of steps in assessing what the capabilities of AI were to basically use some simple few-shot prompt examples from the historic ticket data set. And then with that coupled with a somewhat detailed but general set of guidelines within the system prompt, guidelines for the LLM to take when trying to determine which of the appropriate area paths it should go to, and the results were pretty abysmal. Way too simple of an approach, and we had some limitations that were specific to the organization. We had rather than being able to use GPT-4 and some other tools, we had a kind of a wonky version of 3.5 Turbo on an unconventional tech stack, but I won't get into that. Long and short of it is the sort of simple approach, GPT 3.5 Turbo does not have the capability to do this to any degree of effectiveness. And you could, in theory, write out a really detailed system prompt to guide the AI, even as dumb as 3.5 Turbo. You could write out, theoretically, a very long system prompt that takes them through the steps that would ultimately get them to the assignment of these 100 plus possible endpoints. But who the heck wants to do that? And maybe more importantly is, why are there 100 plus different possible endpoints that this team has to choose from? Maybe we should be simplifying. So we did simplify, and so rather than looking at each of these and the historic tickets and putting them into their one of 100 plus categories, we organized them into 10 major categories. So basically 10 major buckets of support ticket types that we felt pretty comfortable that we could consistently get the LLM to give reasonable results on taking just the title and the description of a ticket and putting it into that bucket. So now we're talking about a scenario where a new ticket comes in, we have a title, description, and the 10 area path group logic, and then essentially the LLM is asked, based upon each historic test ticket, to assign this ticket to one of those 10 categories. And they're correct or not based upon whether or not that aligns with historically what category that ticket actually aligned to. So the test tickets selected actually had the same distribution by category as was found in the 2023 ticket history. So roughly a quarter of the tickets were in group 1, for example, or category 1, and those were basically new account setup, new user registration types of support tickets. But in any event, we went through, created this more simplified test, multiple choice test for the LLM, and essentially by providing it just the title, description, and the guidance, the detailed guidance on what types of tickets should go into which of these categories and why, we tested the accuracy. And we also did this at a number of different temperature settings. So we were really curious, like, how important is temperature, LLM temperature, in the OpenAI model for the success? And what we found was, interestingly, that between 0 and 1, there was a bit of a sweet spot around 0.5 temp setting, meaning the higher accuracy rates for the AI. But other sort of insight was, interestingly, at least the way our API was set up with 3.5, it was surprising that the temperature setting didn't make a bigger difference. I suspect if we were doing this with GPT-4 or 4.0, we would find some bigger differences with this temperature setting. But the other big takeaway is it was pretty good at getting the most common one, group 1, like we're in that mid 80% accuracy range. But then it really kind of falls off. And as you get to some of these categories where there are fewer examples, and regardless of the instructions and the clarity in the instructions of indicating what would make something a category 9 support ticket versus a 10, we find that on those particular test examples, that just does not do very well. So very poor performance on anything but the more common of the tickets. Now, granted, there's a lot that could be done, different iterations of improving the system prompt instructions, clarification on how to assess what goes into what category, and frankly, maybe different categories are warranted. But what is clear is that 3.5 by itself, without prompt chaining rather, and more a more detailed set of logic that you've given to it, and sort of like a process flow in essence of how to make this determination, it's just not really effective on its own. So approaches that we began to explore, we're really breaking this down into a series of prompt chains. So taking it step by step. So first off, is this a new user request, AKA category 1? If so, yes, bam, that's it, we're done. This is a group 1 ticket. Then the next most common example that we'd want to get, we go through the payment transaction problem category. Is this in that group? If so, group 4. If not, then we move on and move to a new system prompt that has a refined set of instructions that deal with just the remaining categories. So you can actually get more and more precise as we move down the flow of the process. And other approaches to the sort of decision tree that are currently being considered, things like using hierarchical filtering decision trees, sequential elimination, and probability weighting decision trees. But ultimately, in this particular example, what I found interesting was that the team, the business users, recognized that more important than getting the assignment absolutely correct and accurate every time, and very specifically to a very detailed area path. More importantly, would be getting feedback from the AI on suggestions of which they suspect would be the top area paths this should be assigned to and why. And the group decided that actually provided a lot more value, especially given the context that in many cases, well, it turns out that there were multiple groups that might have in fact touched the ticket at some point in time that were a part of servicing it, and in fact would have been equally appropriate to assign to, and would have been serviced as quickly and effectively had they not gone that direction. Anyway, so a lot of interesting stuff there. That's just a teaser. I'd love to talk more about the next steps and where this is going, but that's it for now. Thanks a lot, and I hope you have a great rest of your week.